Hey everyone, my name is Andrew Davis, and you're watching Conversations in Pop Culture. And yes, I am hard to kill. And before I introduce my guest, I do want to remind everybody that my good friend Preston Poulter has a book called House of the Golden Princess and White Lily, and you can find his books on pocketjackcomics.com. He's a big supporter of this show. He's got awesome books, and there are some very interesting things in those books: female empowerment, D&D, Dungeons and Dragons. I want to make that crystal clear, but there's also maybe some other D&D in there in his books. So go check them out. Beautiful art. I do not think you will be disappointed. And if you go to pocketjackcomics.com, be sure to check out his books because they are absolutely awesome. And well, I was thoroughly entertained. But this interview is not about me and my preferences. So I just want to make that crystal clear because I have with me model, entertainer, content creator, Mishka Valour, or Goddess Mishka Valour. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, no, I am excited. I am excited. Obviously, there's a lot to talk about. You got a lot going on. You've done a lot of stuff. And I think 10 years you've been doing all this stuff, for lack of a better word. But
Mhm.
I'm gonna let you introduce who you are because there's people who know who you are and there's people who don't. And I figured you're the person who should know you the best.
Well, that would be most accurate. I'm Goddess Mishka Valour. I've done all sorts of fun things, created all sorts of fun content, adult content to be specific, in the fetish world. Everything from dominatrix side, or in my past when I was on more of the submissive content side, and everything in between. I've worked with so many beautiful creators, especially throughout the Florida circuit, as well as in the online circuit. And you can find all sorts of my good stuff on Twitter, Clips for Sale, a few other places. We can get into that later, though.
Yeah, so there's a lot to talk about. So I figured that the question I have is, how'd you get into this? Because everybody has a different way how they get into the industry, I think is the appropriate word here.
Yes.
Um, so how'd you get into the industry? Because some people get in through modeling, some people get in through other means, some people have
Mhm.
a friend rope them in.
Mhm.
Yeah, literally or mentally, figuratively. I mean,
Yeah.
depending on how you gotta look at it.
Pun
I'm
very
sorry,
much intended.
I couldn't help. I couldn't help. But yes, how'd you get into the industry is the question.
Yeah. I have a very amazing friend who has been part of the industry himself, and he actually took me to an adult club in Orlando when I was around 18 or 19, and he introduced me to the scene. And this was just mind blowing for somebody who came from kind of more of a conservative background. And it was great to just have my mind totally opened to all of these amazing walks of life. And it was a space where it was very concerned with safe, sane, and consensual. Say that three times fast. So he brought me there and he introduced me to all of his friends there and the owner. And I got to learn about so many different types of play. And I was immediately hooked. I was like, this is where I belong. These are my people. I don't know how or why, but I had to be here. So I would go every weekend that I could. And then occasionally I would get to go and actually film there. So I became part of their group that would film on the off days. And that just kind of turned into going to events, going to FetCon, and here we are today.
Oh man, so much to talk about right there. Obviously, I mean, what was that like? Because you're coming into a safe environment in certain ways, and you're, I don't want to say dipping your toe in the water, but that's how it sounds, where you're inching in, but then you were just hooked, and it was like you just got it, right? Like it just
Oh, yeah.
clicked. It
It
just clicked. I don't know how to explain it any other way. Where certain things to me on finances just clicks within
Mhm.
seconds. It's just I get it immediately. I was having a phone call today. I'm talking to somebody about baseball cards, and the person who was trying to sell me a course was like, "Oh my god, you're like a perfect fit." And like I could tell the person wasn't ready for the conversation
Mhm.
and what I was explaining to him, and he's like, "Oh my god, like you know more than probably half the people I speak to," and and it clicked, right? So like, what was that like? Because that's like a weird thing sometimes, where something is just a perfect like the thing goes right into the peg.
Hmm.
Or I don't know. I'm out of words here, but continue, please.
Oh, you're good. You're good. I know what you mean when it resonates with you and you just feel like you've known it your whole life. Um, it was just amazing walking into what you would think was just kind of like this warehouse space. And then you walk in and there's all of these women dressed in beautiful outfits, everything from not a whole lot to a whole lot more. Many beautiful dominatrixes and many beautiful submissives. Some of them are just wearing entire outfits made out of rope. Um, there's giggling and screaming, and there's people hanging from the ceiling, and somebody's in a cage over there, and there's people relaxing on the sofa. Just a beautiful world to walk into and to see how amazing it was that they were just accepted and everybody there just really preached. That's such a kind of like not a great word, but really impressed on you how important it was to communicate with each other and to say, hey, I like ABCD. I don't like these things over here. Where can we meet in the middle and let's have some fun? Let's explore each other. It was just, it
The
was like, I'm getting excited just talking about it. Like,
I'll ask you this, and maybe this will give also some clarification. So I went with a good friend of mine to Exotica Con in Jersey.
ooh.
So and I walk in there, and I mean, you really can't have much nudity there. I mean, you can have pretty much everything right up to the line. So
Yeah.
like a girl can't be topless, right? She has to have pasties on.
Mhm,
And same thing with a guy can't just have his dick out, for lack of a better word. Um, but you could have a lot of other stuff. A lot of skin can be shown. A lot of
mhm,
things can be suggested. Things can kind of pop out a little bit. I don't know how to explain that any other way. But everybody was an adult in the room. I don't know how to explain that, right? So
mhm,
I'm a big anime guy. I go to an anime con. You have people who are mature and adults, and you have 22-year-olds screaming, running around like out of control. But at Exotica Con, everybody was an adult. Does
yeah,
that make any sense? So like I think that's where this becomes interesting is that if you're walking into this world, everybody seems to be hopefully an adult. I mean, I don't know if that makes any sense. And this is where I think it gets really interesting, right? Because not every scene is like that. And not every club is like that. I mean, I know because when you speak to enough people in the industry, everybody has horror stories.
yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, that does happen, and those places do exist out there. Hopefully, fewer and fewer every second. Um, this was not that experience. This was definitely everybody was an adult. Everybody had an awareness of each other and had a lot of respect for each other and their boundaries and their safe space. It was definitely not an experience where you think you're surrounded by little kids or even, maybe some young adults that haven't finished growing up yet. And that's okay. Everybody's at their own pace, but that was not the case here.
The point I'm making about Exotica Con is that I was pleasantly surprised that there was a level of maturity, if
Mhm.
that makes sense. Where and look, maybe it's ignorance on my part because it was the first one I went to, and I wasn't like going in with judgmental positions, but I was pleasantly surprised with the maturity level, and I
Yeah.
think it's something that's interesting in that regard. But I digress. But that's my experience at Exotica Con is that I'm like, okay, this
Hmm.
is a mature position, and okay, I mean, I wouldn't say it was. I'm sure there was people who were assholes there, but for the most part, it was a professionally mature environment, which was nice to be
Yeah.
in, because it's nice to be 32 and be around adults.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say it that way. As much as I love my nieces, there's only so much Frozen I can watch before I start losing my mind. But I digress because I do want to talk about a bunch of stuff else because obviously Florida is an interesting place, and you were around in Florida for a while as far as the kink community and all that
Hmm.
stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, you were doing a lot of stuff down there. So
Hmm.
obviously, I mean, besides shooting, and we're gonna get to that also. I mean, you were doing some cam stuff too with I think a kink affiliate. So how did that happen? Because I remember Kink back in the day.
Oh yeah, Kink Live, the original. What a beautiful space that was. Um, so that was actually one of the evenings that I had gone to the club that my friend had first originally introduced me to. And one of the owners said, "Hey, I want to be able to use this space on off days. It's a chance for you to make some money. We can make some money. We make a little commission off of you for letting you use the space. You have access to all of the dungeon equipment." And they had all the computers and cameras and everything set up. And we would pair off with other creators. And sometimes it was two of us, sometimes we were solo. But it was just him coming and saying, "Hey, you like fetish? You're good at it. You're pretty. You want to be on camera?" And so I said, "Yeah, let's give it a shot." And it turned out to be some of the best days of my life.
So let's talk about this because kink, I mean, camming is so interesting, right?
Mhm,
Obviously, I've spoken to every side of this, right?
for
I
sure.
mean, I've spoken to Ariel X, I've spoken to Sasha Nakamoto. If
Mhm,
you don't know who Sasha Nakamoto is, she's the girl on StreamMate who is a video game real engine
mhm,
cam model.
mhm.
Super trippy, super trippy. Um, but and I was going to Jared DeVry on this, so I know way more than I want to know. I know all the economics of it. I know everything. I know
Mhm,
everything about this. Um, no, nobody thinks I know everything, but I do. I know everything except how to be on cam in that sector. But what was this like? Because this is brand new in many ways. I mean, it wasn't the first one, I don't think, Kink Live, but it was definitely precursor, definitely interesting. You know,
mhm.
you had the tip button. I wouldn't say the visual was great per se, but like, it wasn't their fault. I mean, I'm not trying to beat out Kink and make this bad, but like, what was that even like? Because I mean, it was kind of new territory. What was this, 2000, like 14, 2016 ish? Or
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
not to date
technology
us,
has
not to
changed so
date
much.
us.
Yeah. No, no, you're good. You're good. Yeah, no, it definitely had its glitches. There's no doubt. It's definitely improved a little bit. And Kink was one of the, I think, best recognized and one of the earliest ones that created like a fetish space because there's so many ways where you can cross lines where it's like inappropriate on camera. So I think it was like a territory that a lot of companies probably didn't want to go into. Just keep it with regular sex and dildos and things like that. And that's fine. That's easier. Um, but it was definitely fun navigating that. There was a lot of time wasters, we would call them. There was a lot of idiots. I say with love. There was a lot of lurkers as well. And you also had those gems, those people that really connected with you and that you created as much of a personal relationship as you could with somebody online. Um, so it was a wild ride. Let's say
So,
that.
I want to talk about this actually because I think you're bringing up something that's really interesting.
Mhm,
Um, is that obviously kink was definitely more fetish based,
mhm.
meaning that if you went to kink and you were looking up those models,
Yeah.
and those people, obviously you were expecting more along the lines. I'm probably gonna get offensive words, so if I offend anybody, I'm sorry, but somebody who might be more into rope bondage, might be more into spanking, might be more of a submissive position, or might
Mhm,
be more trained in, I guess, a dom position, right?
mhm.
Or doing something. I don't know. Yeah, I could go through 20 fetishes. I really don't want to because there's gonna be a lot more questions for my audience after this interview if I name like 20 of them off the top of my head here.
Yeah.
Um, but, but my point that I'm making is that obviously you're catering to a certain audience. And so, what is that like? Because obviously, you're in this space in your personal life, you're
Mhm,
shooting in that space, but then it's also in the cam, but you're also catering to a particular customer. And there
mhm.
is something to be said about, well, you might be limiting the audience a little bit, but you're also getting to the right audience or client member or the customer. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's what I think is interesting about this whole thing is that because it's almost customization to a degree at the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, it was really nice that it was this. kind of a little bit of a niche and a pigeonhole because you were able to draw just that specific client. And I don't think even, probably not even as much now, but a little bit more now. Um, at the time, I think it was still a little bit frowned upon in the internet to be interested in those things. And so it was really great to be able to be one of the creators creating a safe space for that to happen. Um, and I definitely have the stories of like people with very interesting desires that, you know, you would not even think of. But, I think it's kind of beautiful that you get to learn about the diversity of what people love and like what turns them on. So it was a big lesson in understanding boundaries and what my boundaries were, and also understanding how to read people through simple text messages on a chat. So um, there was a lot of different answers there, but it's a really deep question. So there's a lot of things you could talk about within the first experience of that.
You mentioned something else also with this in particular is that obviously I think that I mean I'll just state it. I think society is more kinky than it's ever been. I think there's more diversity. I think there's more acceptance per se. I think people, I mean, are more tolerable just in general, not even particular with sexual positions, but just issues in general. I think people are more empathetic in
Yes.
society, or at least trying to be.
Hmm.
Um, this goes just to basic understanding. So we could have a whole discussion about disability understanding, right? I think in
Hmm.
the last 20 years, the world has become a little bit more empathetic to that position, but then that also trickles down to everything else. So what is that like though? Because 11 years later, give or take, from 2014, I
Hmm.
don't think if somebody is into a particular kink that it's really frowned upon. Somebody's like, okay, like I don't really care. That's not news to me. Like I was speaking to a model maybe 3 weeks ago, and she's like, yeah, it doesn't phase me anymore. Something that was brand new in 2014. Like I don't know if that makes
Yeah.
any sense. So like, what is that like even looking back in retrospect? Because kink to me and those live cams were very much you're into something that's a little off bounds that you might not want to tell your partner that you like.
Hmm. Hmm. It's true. Um, I think it's great to look back in retrospective on it and just take a minute to realize that maybe we were pioneering in a weird way, which you never think you are when you're living through a moment, right? But I think in some ways we were. And of course, the kink community has some overlay into the LGBTQ community, and it is through their presence and their, you know, visualization in the world and just being more seen and allowed and accepted, which is so great. That has also benefited us. Rising tide lifts all boats. Um, so I think it's really, really great that we had a space to do that, to provide people a safe space to say, I want this really unusual thing. It's not exactly hurting anybody, and I'm happy to pay you money for it. Okay.
Just so many things I could say to that.
Oh, yeah,
Again,
I'm sure.
so many things I could say. To that. I'm choosing not to say certain things.
You
Just because
know.
I know my place. I
Mhm.
know very easily you could destroy me. So
But that's part of the trust that you also build in the community because,
it is.
you know, nobody wants to be doxxed. So, when you have those relationships with specific people, you both kind of respect that there's like a vanilla world living out there where we have to have like more of a corporate
It,
face that's
it's
appropriate.
interesting that you bring that up because there's a show, and you may or may not like the show, but it's the Whatever podcast. They have
Okay.
contracts, and they make the people come not to docks where the studio is located
Hmm.
for good reasons because you don't want to be swatted. I
Yeah.
mean, we could talk about whether you like something or you don't. Tim Pool's the same way, where Tim Pool's been swatted. That's not
Yeah.
a fun circumstance. You could not like somebody and you could not like their viewpoint, but you can't go and there's a reason why people, and that's a vanilla position. And I would imagine that if you're in the adult community, you don't want to be swatted. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm not saying what I and what I don't do, but I'm not gonna go if I do something that is off the radar. I'm not gonna go dox somebody. I
Yeah.
mean, clearly it's just a professional courtesy. And I think it's really interesting in that regard. So again, safe spaces, I get that, but I don't even call it safe space. I just call it just common courtesy of not wanting to dox somebody and reveal their identity. I mean, I know people's real names and not their performer names. And
Hmm.
you're not gonna see me drop those names down, right?
Right.
That's
Of
just
course.
professional courtesy at
Yeah.
its minimum. Um, this is my real name, by the way. Andrew is my real name. So, but there's a lot of Andrew Davises in the United States, so
True.
it's gonna be hard to find me. But anyway, all jokes aside, but I do want to talk about something else with this too. Is that
Oh.
obviously in camming, you do get lurkers, you get freeloaders, you get people trying to get things for as much as they possibly can get.
Mhm.
And I don't think this is a new problem. I don't. I don't think it was a new problem in 2014. I don't think it's a new problem in 2025.
No.
Um, so how do you deal with that? Because I think that's interesting. And even outside of this whole thing, just in the adult world in general, I think there's a lot of freeloading shit that sometimes happens, or people try to get what they can get.
It's in our nature, I think, in some ways. Not everybody maybe is that competitive about it, but I think in general, we all kind of want to get what we can. We want to get a lot of bang for our buck. But at the end of the day, it's sales. No matter what kind of packaging or what your product is, it's sales. So we have to understand customer service, negotiation, meeting the client needs. Even when you're a goddess, in a lot of ways, you're still servicing because you're taking an exchange for money or for goods or whatever it is.
I'll
Um,
use a term. We all are a master. We all have a master to somebody.
exactly. Yeah.
Very few people can dictate what they want.
Hmm.
Um, I interview whoever I want, and I don't care. I
Hmm.
don't have a master as far as my show rules go, and who I want on my show, and when I want them on my show, and how I run it. But I know other people that have masters because they don't pay for it and they don't buy the position. I have been invited to networks to join, and I have no desire because I don't want to play by their rules. I want
Yeah.
to play by my rules. Um, and it's good, bad, indifferent, and it's not that expensive to run this show. It's not, and I'll just bite the bullet. I'll just bite the bullet so I can play by my rules,
Mhm.
and I say what I want, how I want to say it, good, bad, indifferent, and I have interesting opinions on things, but they're fun. So,
Well, that's
and
good.
I have crazy opinions on things, and
I'm sure.
I have no master to dictate what I can and can't say. And so
Mhm.
when I go on people's podcasts, I'm like, as a guest, I'm like, you gotta know I'm controversial, but I think it's so interesting that you do that. But like, I think you do have power though. If you're the model on cam and you're dealing with an asshole, you could block him.
Yep. Yep. And that is nice. And occasionally the black button did have to be utilized. But if you're smarter at your craft, especially if it's a public chat room, you use them as leverage. You use them as a catalyst. You use them as a conversation spark. And if you're really clever, you let those in the chat room that do love and respect you take the garbage out and kind of handle them in their own time.
I
Because if you're kowtowing to them in the comments or whatever, you already lost the game. That's it.
see. I like trolls to a degree. If a troll is coming at me, it's different than if they're coming at my guest.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Also, there are lines. So I had a person who was trans, and the person was clearly crossing a line. So I put them in a 15-minute timeout,
Mm.
which I thought was the appropriate way. My guest didn't see him. My guest didn't care, right?
Oh,
But at the
good.
same time, I'm like, you're not adding anything productive to the conversation.
Mhm.
You gotta be in a 15-minute timeout, and there's and it's not that I'm gonna censor somebody's speech, right? It's somebody could say whatever they want to say. It's not my job to censor speech. It is my job, though, that if you're not adding anything to value or you're not making a fair attack, if you think the question I asked was stupid, that's a fine attack. But you shouldn't, or if you think that, oh man, Andrew, you look like you're hammered, and why are you on the show? Your show sucks. That's fine too, to a degree. I'm not happy about it, but there are lines where it's like, why are you just being disrespectful? There's no point in that. But I
Yeah,
do think you have a lot of power when you're camming. So
it's
I
true.
think
It's true. And
I,
you kind of feel it too when you're on camera. It's true. It's true. Well, maybe not for everybody. And maybe not the first couple times I went on camera because that was a little more nerve-wracking. Because I had varied experience in it. But to do it formally and to do it for actual exchange of goods, that was a little different. But you feel it. You feel it in your soul. You feel it in your spine that you kind of have this power and you get to be a little bit of something that maybe you aren't when you're just at home in your slippers,
let me ask
just
you
on this
this.
persona.
So I've been paid for a bunch of stuff, right? So obviously, I've had sponsorships, and it's nice when you're being paid to do something, or it helps cover, costs around a show and a bunch of other stuff.
Sure.
So what was that like getting paid for this for the first time? Because it must be weird. It must be weird because you're like, I don't know if it was fun for you to do it at the same time. Be like, this was great. I enjoyed doing this, but you
Mhm.
don't want to do it for free, right? People say, and the
Right.
saying is that if you enjoy, being in the adult community, you should do it for free. Well, you can enjoy something, but still want to be paid for it, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah, yeah, and there's definitely like investment and things that go into it, clothing, unless you aren't wearing clothing, I guess that's not an investment. But you know, you still need your camera, you need your setup, you need your toys, whatever kind of toy that may be, whether it's a riding crop or a dildo, you're going to need something. Um, so, you're going to have some sort of exchange. But let me tell you, when I got that first check, I laughed the whole way home. And it was a 30-minute drive home. It was a very long laugh. So it was really nice because I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I just got paid to do these basic things like
you just got paid to
uh,
break a man.
little things.
I spoke to somebody, and her response to me was that, "Oh, I can't believe I got paid to break a man," and I just started laughing hysterically
Oh my
because
gosh.
I thought that was funny. I thought that was funny, but I also have a fucked up sense of humor, right?
Mhm.
So I love dark comedy. I love dark comedy, and I
Yeah.
love things that are dark and messed up and just honest, brutal truths. Like I was watching Dave Chappelle talk about Chris Rock and Will Smith in the slap, and he said the one thing I would have done is made sure Will Smith did not enjoy the rest of his night if he slapped me. And I thought that was hysterical. Because he said, I don't know what I would have done, but the one thing I would have made sure of is to make sure Will Smith would have not have enjoyed the rest of his night. And for like a good 10 minutes, I was dying with laughter because
Mhm.
it was so honest, but it was so dark that it just made me
Mhm.
laugh
That's
hysterically.
beautiful.
Because
Mhm.
it's so true though. But again, I would imagine, but going even further into this, um, what is it also like to do a show with another girl? Because I would imagine that if
Wouldn't
you
you like to know?
what
Wouldn't you like to know?
I would like to know. Thank you very much. No. What I mean by this is that obviously, I mean, I would imagine that it could be fascinating, right?
Mhm.
Because if you're subbing or doming her, there's that cool dynamic. Visually, it looks cool. There could be potential for more money, right, involved. Or it could also be less or more work, or it could also just be that you just have another person in, I guess, the room. So maybe you're dealing with less bullshit. I don't know, like exactly. I mean, there's a million things that could be in play here, or it could just be cool,
Mhm.
cross promoting. Because if one girl is really popular during this time period and you're up and coming, well, your name is getting exposed out there.
You don't even need me for the interview. You just said it all. No, but it's true. And that was what was so great about working at that dungeon and in that space was there were like a dozen of us that would come in every night, and it was different people, and people would stay for different amounts of time. And especially when I was up and coming, several of them, took me under their wing and showed me a lot of ropes. I also probably annoyed several of them because I didn't know what I was doing. So for sure, I know that there was maybe a few moments where I did some silly things that weren't really great on camera, but um, it was great because you got to experience a lot of those different dynamics. And some of us had great chemistry on camera. Some of us were a little bored together. And what a beautiful human experiment that is in and of itself, the fetish stuff aside, just getting to see how two people can interact and control a room together, or seeing which one naturally steps up to be the like controller in the room and which one maybe is the jokester in the room or whatever it is. So that was always an experiment. And of course we had our personal favorites to work with, and those that our viewers had their favorites to watch together. So it was an adventure to say the least.
I could tell you from my experiences that I had a co-host on a show for almost 2 years, and we just clicked, and it just
Oh,
worked, right?
yeah.
And I've tested other things with people, and it doesn't work. And it's just like me and my best friend. We are both New York. We are both Jewish, and we both have messed up sense of humors, and we make horrible jokes to each other and say terrible things to each other, and people have no idea how it works. And it's this idea that the relationship just clicks.
Mhm.
And I don't know if that's how you felt with some of these girls that you were working with, where just some of you just naturally clicked. And it's like some of you, not saying you're oil and water, but the clicking wasn't the same, because when two people just click for whatever reason, whether it's upbringing, thought process, ideology, philosophy, understanding of something, some weird connection, I don't know, like I can sense it, right? I mean, I don't know if
Yeah.
anybody else can, but I can sense when two people in a shoot or a scene like each other,
Mhm.
and they have good chemistry, it can be felt.
For sure. For sure. And I think the more we experimented as that group, which went on for, I would say at least about a year, we got to know who worked well on camera together. And I would say you might not always know when people get along because there you might have pairings where they are loved on camera, they make a boatload of money on camera, the crowd is loving them, they're having great banter back and forth, but also maybe off camera they don't like each other all that much, but they make good money, so they tolerate each other.
Okay.
So, but for the most part, no, I really enjoyed everybody that I got to work with, and a handful in particular became friends even outside of it, and we ended up doing shoots and things like that even beyond just that dungeon space.
So let's even talk about that too, because obviously being on cam is one thing, but then doing shoots, doing scenes, what is that like? Because I think that's also fascinating. I mean,
Mhm.
especially back, what, 2014, 2015, Clips for Sales was around,
Yeah.
Extra Lunch Money was around, I Want Clips, was that around? I
Mhm.
think, or is that starting to happen? Many vids I don't think was around, right?
No, maybe not. It was like you got Chatterbait and you had Night Flirt and
It's still around. Sex Panther wasn't around yet.
no, I don't think so.
I know
um,
all of these companies. I know all these companies. It's
yeah. Hmm. It's a lot of information you have there. But it's definitely a different dynamic. I think the negotiating in that can be even harder because you are negotiating with the person who's doing the filming, or sometimes you're meeting with clients that want to film or like agree to be filmed in exchange for whatever's happening to them. So I think it's a different negotiation tactic, and
this is
not that
interesting.
there's less control, but it's a different kind of control. Because here, I could just close my laptop and be done. You know.
This is interesting, right? Because we get into a whole bunch of stuff. So obviously, if you're shooting a solo custom, it's pretty basic, I think, where I mean, I'm not saying it's basic, but it's just you, right? Anything that involves you and nobody else is the easiest thing on the planet. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess it depends on how many hands you need for how many toys, but in general, yes.
If you're if I'm to book and I want you to shoot with 3 girls, you now have to coordinate with 3 different people, 3 girls. You have to
Mhm.
figure out who's down for what, how this is gonna go. You gotta go find some talent, and it becomes a headache, right?
Yep, you have
Um,
to do the location, you have to make sure everybody is safe to play with. You have to make sure that all the energies are really good to play with. You have to make sure it's in a space where people feel safe to play in that way. You've got a laundry list of things to manage, but oftentimes it is worth the effort. And that's why it's so important to have friends in the industry because you have people that you can trust and that you know are safe to work with.
It's interesting you bring up energy. So I was speaking to a photographer, and he planned a trip to, exotic country, and he had 6 women on the trip. He said, "I have to figure out these 6 women because if this could fuck up the whole trip of all these shoots, because if one girl's being a bitch," and I'll just say that I have no problem stating it, and then she starts forming a clique with another girl, it's gonna throw all the other 6 girls out of whack, and all this is gonna be really bad. It's gonna be really
Yes.
bad. So I thought it was funny when he was saying it, and he said it that way, and I just started laughing hysterically because I'm like, I know exactly how this could go down wrong.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
the
Oh, yeah, it'd be very, like, sitcom style, just the chaos, or, like, I guess more like reality TV.
it could be good TV. It could just not be good
Yeah.
for him. But it could be funny to watch. Again, I have a fucked up sense of humor. But not the point here. But like, this is where I'm going with this is that, and then you brought up another thing that I think is really interesting. And this is what I was speaking about with Ariel X to some degree.
Mhm,
We look at OnlyFans, and I don't know when a girl is shooting with a guy, how safe it is per se, because if you're on OnlyFans, I don't consider that professional to the same as if it was on a scene shoot. I don't
mhm,
know if the same safety standards are in place. I don't know how it's being monitored. And it doesn't affect me because I'm not gonna go and touch an OnlyFans girl. No offense to her, but it's just not my cup of tea. Just on a safety level.
mhm,
I like to be safe, and I like to know who I'm in a relationship with, where she is going and being around, and preferably I'm hoping that we're monogamous with each other. I think monogamous means single, right?
mhm, mhm.
So because I'm not a polyamorous person,
Okay.
so it's just not me as my personality. So the
Yeah.
person I date and have dated, we are exclusive to each other.
Mm,
So, but like, I also feel safe in that regard because there's a lot of crazy shit out there.
mhm. So where does the line go in that if you're, for example, choosing to play with somebody online, but you're seeing somebody or you're with somebody, is that
Oh, I
crossing the
mean, that's a good question. So when I was dating somebody, I didn't really play online.
line? Mhm,
Um, and also, it is. I mean, I think it's also different if you're ordering a custom, because I mean, this is a good question. Though. It's a good ethical question because what
yeah, there's
constitutes.
no right answer, there's no wrong answer,
No,
it's
no,
just
no, 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 no. It's a legit question. So I don't. So you could. It's interesting because could you technically emotionally cheat on somebody? I think you technically could.
Mhm.
Um, obviously I'm single right now, so whatever I want to do, if I want to play online or I want to,
Yeah.
do something, I can do whatever I want. I have no obligation, right? But
Mhm.
if I'm married, unless my wife says you could go play online, it's not gonna happen. But even still, I'm probably not gonna want to do that because I'm probably gonna want to fuck my girlfriend and ideally fuck my wife, right? Like, I mean, and preferably she wants to do the same to me, right? I mean, so but that's a good question. That's a great
Mhm.
question actually, is that
Yeah.
but then again, I don't think it's necessarily wrong for I don't think if a guy watches porn and he's married that he's cheating on his wife.
I personally agree with that. I think exploring sexual interests, especially through porn, is a great starting off point to see if you're interested, Because even with our most intimate partners, we're not always brave enough to come out and say, "Hey, I'm interested in this kind of like unusual thing." First you're going to test if you like
Yeah,
viewing it, and then you're going to imagine it, and then you're going to bring it up.
sure, but again, I don't think cheating is watching porn. I think
No,
on
I
a night
would have to
flirt.
agree with that personally for my own
Yeah, yeah,
ethics,
yeah, yeah.
you know?
I think on a logical level, I think it's a hard argument. Now you could say it's wrong technically to do that. That's a different discussion, but it's not cheating to me. But then we have to get into a whole philosophical discussion about what is right and wrong, and we'd be here for the next 10 hours.
We would
Which is
have
not
no
what I
answer
want
at
to
the
do.
end.
This is I don't really want to get into morality per
Totally
se.
understandable. Yeah.
Me and Andrew Wilson will tear that up. No, that's terrible.
You guys have fun with that then.
Oh my god, that guy is just a scary debater. He scares the
Mhm.
shit out of me. He's so good. He's
Mm,
so terrifying. Right, or whether you agree or disagree with the guy, he's such a good debater.
mm.
It's terrifying how good he is. You'll learn something from the way he does things. But anyway, I digress. But I find this interesting, right? Because it's like you're shooting stuff, and I mean, it's kind of cool. I mean, because you've done it all, right? I mean, you've done stuff for people. I think you've done your own stuff, and then you've done some custom work.
Oh, yeah.
And like, what is that like? Because all that stuff could be fun, right? And it's
Oh,
also money, especially if you own it, right? It's
yeah. Yeah.
evergreen.
The money is definitely really nice, and I have experience in both where, like, um, all of the things that were filmed at the dungeon, part of the agreement and payment, if you will, for, like, using the space was that they got to keep all of the recordings. So they still have those up for sale, and they will get whatever revenue comes from them. Now, granted, like you pointed out, the quality is not that great after 10 years. A lot of the names are not like as in the business anymore. So you might not get a lot of money from that anymore. But, um, I've definitely done everything from doing the customs to going and doing shoots to meeting people for personal sessions. I would say probably doing customs and going to shoots are the safest options and usually going to, be the easiest ones. Negotiating in person is a little bit harder, and you have to have a lot of trust with that person, or be very confident in yourself in self defense. So, it's
Let me ask you this about in-person stuff. So
yeah,
obviously, I'm not going to go too into details of my life, but I mean, questionnaires are important. Getting a sense of somebody, having a 15-minute conversation with somebody. I mean, I don't know if you can do this, but within 15 minutes, I can tell if I'm going to make money with somebody or not.
mm,
Um, and I ask weird questions, right? I will ask
yeah,
somebody weird questions, and people ask me weird questions about money.
mm,
So this phone call I had about this whole baseball card stuff that's right related to my business. Person was asking me questions about money and about sales and what I was buying and selling. And when I started rattling stuff off, the person knew that I was legit.
mm,
So because I start saying, yeah, I just sold this card, this card, this card, this card. And Brent's like, I saw that sale on
yeah,
eBay. And Brent's like, oh, you're him.
yeah,
So, I mean, I don't know if you do stuff like that, but you
mhm,
know, I've done stuff in the industry and I've had weird questions asked.
yeah.
And person was like, I kind of feel comfortable with you in that
That's
regard.
really good. And part of it's knowing, what questions to ask. And you can usually tell, like you said, in the first few minutes, if somebody knows the right questions to ask, if somebody really knows how a scene is likely to happen. And that's not to say that you shouldn't give novices a try. But I think you have to know how to tell whether or not they're invested and whether or not their mindset's in the right place. Because we still want to do it safe, sane, and consensual, right? Um, People talk about like, oh, I want to be broken. Do you really? Do you really? Or do you want like the experience of that, but you actually want to be okay at the end? Because that's probably what you actually want. You still want to be able to go back to your normal life afterwards. So there's different lines, and you have to know how to ask those questions without breaking the facade, without taking away the magic of it all. You know.
I'll ask you an interesting question is that, I mean, I don't know how you feel, but let's say a guy says, I want to be a sub, right?
Mhm.
So it's just so This is my issue with findoms. A
Mhm.
good findom should know not how to bankrupt her sub.
Well, no.
And it be what would you say?
I said, well, no, then you don't get any more money.
So it's you agree, right, with what I just said, right? I want to make
Mhm.
sure. Okay, sometimes words miss me, and then sometimes it
Oh,
doesn't
yeah,
connect.
sorry. Yeah,
No,
you're
no,
good.
no, no. Sometimes things just don't connect in my head, right? Because somebody said I agree or I disagree or no, but they agree, right? I just wanted to make sure we're on the same page. So because the analogy I use is that you buy a cow, you can do two things with the cow. You could kill the cow and sell the meat and get your money out, or for the next 15 years, you can milk your cow and get a little bit of money every single week out of your cow, and you might make more money. But if you kill your cow, you made your money back within a week, and maybe you made $25 on your cow, but you don't have a cow anymore.
Exactly.
And
Exactly. So you have
so,
to know when to kill the cow because sometimes it's time to kill the cow.
so my point is that about what I'm doing is that I think a good dom should know where her subs lines are, whether it's both male or female, it doesn't matter, or whether it's I don't know if it's a male dom or I don't know what a male dom is. I don't know exactly what these terms are, but I should know if I'm doming a girl where her line is, and I should know kind of what she wants, and
Yeah.
I should have an idea, and I should have some essence of responsibility, and I think it's an art. I think it's an art to understand
Mhm.
where that line is, because if a sub
Yeah.
goes to you and says, "I wanna be broken and I wanna be ruined," you don't get to fucking tattoo his face. I mean, I'm using an extreme example, but, like,
Well. No, but I understand what you mean. You have to know where those boundaries are. And that was one of the most important things that I learned from the community that I had in Florida was that not a single scene ever happened within that space without having a conversation before. And I'm talking about in person, just adults enjoying each other's company, right? Not technically like part of filming or anything, but these were always things where there was always a conversation beforehand. There was, what are your hard no's? What are your, signs of like you're done? And then there also was the basic green, yellow, red system. And every person who was topping knew that they had to check in every few minutes and just say green, yellow, red. And that submissive had to respond where they're at. There was also Mayday, which only ever got called once in that space. And that's where every dungeon master descends upon you and they kick out the person that was, going over the line. So, but no, it's very important to know where those lines are. And there's no doubt that I've probably crossed a few of them. Um, and sometimes you kind of don't learn until you both learn where that line is. Sometimes we both don't know where a hard no is until you figure it out together. But that's why you have an aftercare conversation too.
there's so many things I could say, so many things I could say that I do not wanna say on camera, on
Oh,
live.
okay. You have to tell
'Cause
me
'cause
later because I'm curious now. I want to know. You can't just leave me in the dark.
I won't leave you in the dark. Again, there are things that are very public, and then there are things that are very private.
Naturally.
Um, so, and not like, I mean, again, I didn't tell anybody I had a job for like a year and a half when I first got my job because I didn't know if I was going to survive a week at my job. It was a very private issue, right?
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
because I'm like, I don't know if this thing is going to work out. I was there for almost 3 years
Wow.
before I was laid off for a reduction of force. But
Mhm.
anyway, I didn't tell anybody because I'm like, I would rather not. If I don't stay 2 weeks, it's just like it didn't happen, right? Like that was the
Yeah.
theory behind it, is that everybody's like, oh man, I got a job. And then I'm like, I left my job 2 weeks later. I didn't want to deal with the shame of failure
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
Facebook. So it was a private issue, right?
Mhm.
And so, and it's not good or bad. It's just a private issue. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. You have to be careful about who you share your information with. And I think that's true of any subject. You
So,
know?
but I do appreciate the conversation about aftercare. Anyhow, I guess there's so many things about that. But yes, but when you own your content, it's
Yeah.
evergreen for life. And I've
Oh,
learned
yeah.
that
It is. Hmm.
on an interview basis, I have a lot of content that I own.
Of
A lot.
course.
If I never did an interview again, I would be good for the next 50 years of releasing content broken up. When you have 1,300 interviews and you get about 10 to 12 pieces out of every single interview cut up as
Yeah.
micro content, you have so much content. It's
Mhm.
insane. It's
Yep.
insane how much content I have. It's disturbing. And then I have another 120 audio interviews that have never been released either. So
Wow.
I need help with getting the content out. Because but not the point. But it's a cash cow when you do that. So
Yeah.
what is that like for you? Because I think you have I want clips. I don't
Mhm.
know if you have a many vids. I don't know. Do you have an OnlyFans? Because that's a whole also box of worms, for lack of a
Yeah,
better.
it's another box of worms, and one of the challenges is that there's so many platforms you can be on, and I think one of the, you know, novice mistakes I made was that I wanted to be on every platform, but then you can't maintain any of the platforms. So that doesn't really work. You should really pick maybe 3 or 4 that you can really maintain, 3 of the ones that speak to you. Um,
I agree. I
yeah.
agree.
Yeah, you can't do them all. You can sell anything, but you can't sell everything. So I picked, ones that I really wanted to focus on, and I still get residuals from those. Granted, maybe not as much as I did since I kind of stepped away from it when I moved to Ohio, but I'm kind of stepping back into it now. So it's been nice though. Every once in a while, you just get a little check and you're like, oh, somebody out there is enjoying that.
So,
Maybe
so
fun.
let's talk about that because obviously, people go into cycles. So I
Mhm.
took a step back aggressively from podcasting this year for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
I was still doing it, but I wasn't releasing massive content, and now I'm stepping back in and gearing up, and I'm setting up quarter 4 and quarter 1 of next year on micro content. And I have the whole thing planned out. So I spent a lot of time editing content and building it out and building
Mhm.
out social media, but I took essentially 9 months off.
Wow.
Just a lot of shit. I mean, I was still doing interviews, but I wasn't aggressive on social media and
Yeah.
driving traffic just because it wasn't working. Was the point? But I think it's interesting because what is that like to come back in? Because you took a little time off,
Mhm.
and I think a lot of shit changed in between. Because I mean, there's a lot of crazy shit going on with this.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll just name some of this. You got OnlyFans kind of going left, right, and up and down. You
Yeah.
have Fansly going up, right, left, and down. You got Loyalists going left, right, up, and down. You
Yeah.
got basically on many vids doing what they're doing. You got Clips for Sale still around. I Want Clips is kind of there. I don't
Mhm.
know if Extra Lunch Money's around.
Mhm.
Pornhub is complicated.
Yeah.
Um, which oddly enough, apparently Pornhub is a subsidiary of, I think every company is a subsidiary of whatever, of like browsers, Pornhub, like Cam8, Cam Soda, all those companies are all the same. It's insane. It's
That makes sense.
insane. It's
Yeah.
oh, just, and the only thing that's come out of browsers has been like a video game company and a video game news site because the people who did that had an exit on that and they built like it's the weirdest fucking thing that like a comic news source company has come out of porn.
Yeah.
Um, so who said big tits didn't help anybody?
Mm.
Sorry, I couldn't help
Good
it. I couldn't help
problems.
it. But,
No, but it's
but
been interesting because the landscape is changing so much. And even the thing that I've seen change drastically in the past year that I've been like kind of redabbling into it is the phenomenon of AI. And that's been a whole wild thing coming out because there's a lot of models that are very concerned that their likeness is being used, their content's being downloaded and overwritten and AI-ified and then resold. So I think the landscape is a lot different than it was. I think it's improved in some ways, but it definitely has maybe not improved in other areas. I do think there will be a big push though for authenticity, and I think there will be a group that's going to want AI no matter what, and they're just going to go do it and let them have their fun. And there's going to be people who test it out, and they're like, it's fine, it's whatever. But they're going to come back to the real life sessions. I think that's going to be the key is these conversations that
so
people are going to enjoy.
I mean, again, I'm a big AI guy. It's coming. It's
You
here.
have to accept it. It's here. It's now. It's been here.
People
Yeah.
People hate me in the comic world, in which that people are not a fan of AI art covers. And I said, look, it's here, it's coming. They're getting better and better and better.
Yeah.
And if
Gotta
you're
do
an
it.
artist, it's nothing against you. But it's going to put 25 to 50% of you out of business. And nothing personal, nothing personal.
Mhm.
Figure out how to adapt, figure out how to understand.
Yes.
You need to get an education in how it works so you can protect yourself. Every time I have these conversations, I get attacked, I get yelled at, and so I stopped having these conversations. I said, "Great, I'm gonna go and buy a bunch of these stocks,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna get rich, and don't cry to me when I'm the one who's calling it out and yelling fire on the top of the hill, and the fire's 7 miles away, and I just want to protect the town. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I tried."
Yeah.
And, but you don't have to buy an AI product. You don't have to buy it. If you
Nope.
don't like it, I mean, last time I checked, I live in America, and before anybody gives me shit, America is not a perfect country, but it's, I think, the best in the world, because I think you have so many goddamn rights in this country that are better than so many other countries in the world. I really believe that. And I'm
Mm.
not saying it's perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I do believe that it is the best. And there's always room for improvement. But
Mm.
I'd rather live in America than Russia.
I'll
By
give you that. I'd probably rather live in Finland or Sweden.
Fair enough, fair enough. But you understand the argument, right?
Yeah,
The
there's no doubt that there's room for improvement, and I think that there's still a lot of people that have good values here in this country. Um, but that's
the
a
point.
very tumultuous topic.
No. My point though that I'm making is about the AI position is that you are free not to buy the product, and you are free not to accept AI, and you are free to say I want a real girl doing something on cam versus an AI model. You are free to choose that option. Or you're free to choose the AI option. And I'm not going to go tell a consumer what they can and can't buy. If they like something, that's your preference. It's the
That's right.
same thing with a kink, right? If you like watching girls get spanked versus what I like, I'm not going to tell you not to enjoy your shit.
Yeah.
That's how I
Yeah.
feel.
I'm not gonna yuck your yum.
Exactly. So
Yes.
that's the point I'm making. Um, but again, I find it fascinating about that with the AI position. And you mentioned something else, and I don't know how you feel about this, but obviously I've spoken to a lot of models. And how do you feel about protecting your content? Because that's a big issue too right now. Because I hate to say it, but I could steal a lot of content if I wanted to. And I watch a lot of content on Pornhub for free. Some of it's put up by the models themselves. Sometimes other stuff is put up, so I don't know.
Well, I think one thing that was really, important and impressed upon me when I first got into this is that once it's out there, it's out there. You're not going to get it back. And I think much like art, we tend to borrow from each other. So I would really love if there were more things in place to help protect us as models, but I don't know that that's reality. But maybe one day. But I hate to do
Fair
this to
enough.
you. I have to cut our conversation here a little short. So I have
But
to
I
let
do
you
want to
go.
give you a chance to promote yourself. I do want to give you a chance to promote yourself before you get out of here. So where can people find you, bother you? You can do it in 2 minutes, and then I'm gonna let you go.
Okay, sounds good. So you can find me on Twitter, but I am moving over to Blue Sky. You can find me under Mishka Valour. I'm usually under Mishka Valour for most things. I'm also on Foot Finder. I'm still on I Want Clips. I'm on Bentbox for collections of photos. I actually am still on Night Flirt, and I'm looking to get back into my phone calls with that. So if you want to hear my beautiful voice, you absolutely can. And you can also reach out to me directly at mishkavalor@gmail.com if you want to discuss more private things and private sessions and things like that. I love ball busting. I love breaking men. I could break some women too, but I'm a little more of a feminist when it comes to that. So I have more fun breaking men. Um, and I love all sorts of different things. Sissification has also become one of my specialties. I wasn't really seeking out, but it's out there. Um, there's hard rules though of no ABDL, no blood, no animals, no children. Other than that, let's explore. Let's have some fun. Let's see what you like.
Oh,
That's where
that,
you can
that
find
works.
me. Mhm,
That works for me. And then I'm just gonna quickly promote myself. I am Pop Anime Comics on all my
mhm.
social media. So just come find me, type it into Google, you will find me. Come hit me up, bother me. I am not a dominatrix. I am not really a submissive, at least on my channels. I talk a lot about fun comic pop culture stuff a lot, and I interview whoever I want. And yeah, that's everything that I got going on. And
Yeah.
I think that is a wrap, everybody. So I
Well,
hope
thank you
everybody's
so much for having me. I really appreciate your time.
and that is a wrap, everybody. That is a wrap.
Bye.